Hey there. Got a little work to do on this tank today. I've got to add some feet, got to move some bungs around. Let's get started. So, first things first, we're to remove this old bung. I'm a big fan of hole saws, used in odd ways. So, I have hole saws in pretty much every size. This one just happened to fit over top of that bung. So, what I did was set it over there and cored down just until the weld was removed. Tapped it with a hammer, knocked that off of there. Now we just got to grind the weld off, and then we got to fill the hole in. So in order to fill the hole in, we could take a piece of scrap, core that out with a hole saw and fit that in there. But what we're going to do is we'll measure this, find a hole saw that's just over the size of this here, because ideally I want these to sit inside the hole. This one sat on top of the hole. So we'll get that larger hole saw and we'll core that out of here. This is where the new bung is going. So we'll take this, once it's cored out, then we'll place it in here and get that welded in. So we got this drilled. Little trick, if you're drilling a hole and don't want the piece to fall in, cut it on an angle, slight angle, don't go all the way through. Then you can just tip the piece out. There you go. Clean up that burr on the edge and you're ready to roll. Okay, now we've got our slug and our hole. How are we going to hold this thing in there? It's aluminum. Can't magnet it to it. So let's take a little piece of scrap stock, tack weld it to it. I can get it centered wherever I want it. And we'll go through tack 3 corners, break this piece off of here, and then we can finish weld it. And that hole's done. All right, we got this old bung cleaned up. They're just threading a PVC pipe in here, so those threads will be totally fine. I got the OD cleaned up, so it'll be nice to weld. Clamp to the vice grip quick clamps there, and I'll tack one corner, pull this off, and then get it all nice and square, and then go ahead and tack 3 more, and then weld it around. Okay, that one is all done. Came out pretty good. This is all getting covered with a big piece of wood and some cabineting. So that'll be fine. And we got this one all welded in. Done. Now we flip this thing over and move on to that little one there. All right, so we got the tank flipped up here on the end. Next step is to get this bung off of here. Again, I'm going to use a hole saw. I need a 2 7/16. I don't have one. I got a 2 3/8 or 2 1/2. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of walk this around on an angle. It'll be fine. Wash that weld out of there and knock this off, grind it flush, and then we'll determine what size hole we have and probably just use this slug to move over here, same as we did in the other one, but this one will be slightly different. So we'll come back. All right, so that went pretty good. See if this knocks off of there. Cool. We'll get that ground off, clean this inside bore up, get a measurement, determine what size hole saw we need to put over here, and should be ready to go. In order to get this hole saw where I needed it, the hole was right on the edge of the hole. So what I did is just built that up with a little bit of weld. That gave me a spot for my pilot drill. I know it's off center, but I wanted it up a little bit more than it calls for, because if not, it gets into this base here. So yeah, we got our center there. We'll get that drilled and take this piece, and we're going to transition it over to this one. All right, so we got this drilled. Again, I left a little piece hanging. Almost dropped that in there. Now we'll simply take this, turn that around. Obviously get this hole cleaned up a little bit, but get that turned around. I'll probably use the same piece of bar there to tack it, hold it in place, weld that all the way around, and it looks like we're pretty much there. I'll grind this this chunk that I welded on off of here. Then this will sit down inside of it, because I used a slightly larger hole saw than what this was. That way the ID of this hole matches the ID of the hole saw, so that the piece will fit in. If not, it would have been way too small. So we'll get that tacked in there and we'll come back. we got this one all cleaned up. There's a chunk of weld on the bottom. Must have been an inside tack, but that doesn't affect anything, so we'll leave it there. Get it tacked to the piece. Fit that in there. I'll line that up before I weld it right there. Go through and tack these 3, peel it off, weld the whole thing, grind it flush, and then we'll set that bung in there. Tacked, flopped off. Did we get it? Oh yeah, we got it. That'll work. Does this one fit in there? Not quite. I gotta take a little off of that. That's okay. We'll go with the die grinder, clean that up. That'll fit in, but for right now I'm gonna weld that in and then finish it, and we'll move on to getting that fit in there. All right, we got that cleaned up. The die grinder. It's nice we got that little step there from that bottom of the wall or bottom of the floor. Oh, frame here. When I'm setting these, I'm not real concerned about getting them super square. I'll tack it right there, pull the clamps off so that way it won't fall in, and then we can get it all nice and square, measure it. Because it always seems if you try to mess with it, it moves every time you clamp it. So just tack it, lift it, tack it, and then tack it again, and you're good to go. All right, that one is done. Now on to the feet. Oh, I did want to say one thing. I could have reused this one because it sits down low enough that it was reusable, but it looks like the threads got a little bit messed up on the top there, and there is actual metal pipe fittings that thread into this. So in order to risk not having a leak, we are going to store that one right there for now, in case we need it later. Now, next up, we got to put feet on here. So the feet are going to be out of this 3x3 box tubing. So we're going to cut this up at a 45. We'll cut 4 of them. So we'll probably split it, cut it, split it, and then we drill 1 hole in the bottom. Got to grind this a little bit more because there's still some junk. Somebody else cut these feet off, a little prep for me. So we'll clean that up, get this laid out, and get those welded on. Cold saw doesn't quite cut far enough on a 45, so I'm going to finish this off with a bandsaw. All right, time for the feet. We got these made. This one's a little different. Customer supplied the material for the feet, and there wasn't quite enough. So in the essence of saving time, we're going to have 1 odd foot, but that will be okay. Now, to find center of this tank. The feet are supposed to be mounted at 34¼ center to center on a 52-inch tank. Well, these things are never the right distance or the right width. So we will measure, find center of tank, measure out, mark center line, move over 1.5 inches, and then set these feet on that. But first, we're going to get this area cleaned up and make some marks on it. All right, so center lines are all laid out. Put the feet here, so that'll get tacked in. Then we'll put the other one, once that one's tacked, we'll base this one off of that one, 34¼ And I have this sitting on the table so that the feet on the other side and the feet on this side will be on the same plane. I do have a 1/4 inch spacer underneath there because we're going to put ribs across to help fight the corrosion, at least not let it get any worse. So we're going to get these welded in. Feet are all welded on, got the straps on, and the reason for the straps is they're just spacers. The bottom of this tank is heavily corroded. It's about 135 thousandths deep on a 250 thousandths tank bottom. So to give this thing a little bit more life, instead of plating it, we just put some spacers under there to keep this dry. Next time around, when this tank comes out of the vehicle it's going in, it will get a plate on the bottom. So that's why these are just kind of tacked on here. We'll cut these off and plate the whole thing. But that is it. Tank is done. I'm going to go and grind these welds down so this thing sits flush. And that's it. Another product out of the way. Thanks for following along.